Hey, everybody, and thanks for joining us. We spend so much time working on our bodies, lifting macros, micros, but sometimes the biggest thing we miss is our mentality. And with me today, Dr. JJ, or Jonathan Jenkins, and Dr. Kimberly O'Brien is with us. Now, they have written a book. They are writing the book on mentality and how athletes shape their own mindsets and how those skills that we learn actually shape a better life. Hi, guys. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having us.
I love talking to athletes because no matter if I'm at a cocktail party or at the DMV, there is a clear difference. I think you guys will agree. When you talk to somebody with an athletic mindset, they just show up different in their life. JJ, were you sporty all the way through before you decided to take on these professional teams and be their sports psychologist? Tell me more.
Well, thanks for having us. I started off with really bad asthma, actually. So during the spring, during the summer, when pollen was out, I couldn't really go outside, but I love sports and my family was big sports people. And then when the medicine for asthma got a lot better, I was able to play a lot more sports. And like you, I played an individual sport. I was a big tennis player. But like you talked about a little bit earlier, the mental strain of that, being the only one on the court, every win is yours, every loss is yours as well. It was too emotional for me. So I transitioned to playing lacrosse in late high school, ended up playing in college and did that and ran a couple of marathons afterwards. So that's my sports experience, but I love sports in general. Any sport you want to play, I'm ready to toe the line and play.
Nice. Okay. Kim, where did you get started?
Gosh. So I was very shy as a kid. I'm the oldest of four. I'm not shy anymore, but I was. I wasn't super into sports because all I loved to do was read and play with animals. That's all I did up to age about 10. And then one day I remember watching my little brother play hockey. And I was like, I want to do this.
Yeah.
And so I go to my dad after practice. I said, Dad, I want to do that. And he was like, oh, you do? Okay. That literally choosing to play hockey at that point in my life literally changed my life because
Wow.
I became who I am. Sports let me come out of my shell. It let me just be the person I was, be super physical, super tough, angry. It let me be everything I wanted to. And so that's kind of how I got started. And then really grateful to end up playing in college, played at Harvard with an amazing group of women who are my best friends to this day.
Yeah. Can I say thank you, by the way? This it is true. Like sports is the one forum where it's okay for women to release some aggression, for us to show up in a big way. So how does this work its way into your decision to actually work with children? You're doing adolescent athletes as well? That's your practice?
So my practice right now, it's called Unlimited Resilience, and it's a group mental health practice for athletes by athletes. So all of our clinicians are athletes. Everyone we serve are athletes, anywhere from youth recreational all the way up to Olympic professional. So I actually learned this whole idea of what it means to become an expert on yourself through a program I did at, it's a sport social work certification program at University of Michigan. And Greg Harden, who sadly has since passed, but he is, a sports psychologist who talked about the importance of this, of, you can teach all the skills in the world you want, all the mental skills in the world, but it's only you who can figure out for yourself what the best ones are. So for one person where meditation might be what they really need, another person that may not work for them and they may need, something more like intensive self-talk or things like that that might resonate more with them. So it's all about figuring out what it is for you that you need, trying different skills, seeing how they work for you, and then keeping on tweaking that so that you ultimately become the expert on yourself of what makes you the best both in and out of sport, the best version of yourself and what's most in line with your values and how you want to be.
I love that as an expert, you see that there are so many modalities available. I think sometimes people get very rigid on their own doctrine of like what an athlete needs. In each sport, this is how it is. But when you become an expert on yourself, it is trial and error. It is literally seeing the gaps in your own mindset And JJ said something really fun. I'm so glad you said this, that your brain is something that's exponential, right? So what JJ expertly pointed out, and I think is a really good piece of the book here, is that your brain can grow exponentially and your mentality. Can you talk on that, JJ?
Sure. And I'll steal a phrase from one of your previous podcast guests. You go from research to me search. So
Oh, I love,
yeah,
yep,
that was slick. When I saw that, I was like,
yep.
I'm keeping that, putting that in my pocket. But the idea that as adults, we usually stick to the things that we do really well. And that kind of starts in adolescence. When we're kids, we'll explore anything. You got a new game, let's create it. You got a new place to visit, new food, let's try it. But as we get older, that social comparison starts to kick in and that self evaluation. And so in our 40s, like three of us are, this idea that we can try new things and figure out how to harness those difficult things to let ourselves grow. If we stay in a state where there's less tension or tensionless state, we're never going to grow. It's like us going to the gym, lifting 5-pound weights all the time if we have the capacity to do more. So the book really allows you to take on the challenge of understanding yourself and also get exposed to all the cool, beautiful, exciting things that are available to you in the world if you take on the right mentality and mindset to give them a shot and see what happens.
That's amazing. And the thing is, if you have the courage as an adult to take on this task, to level up with your own mentality, guess what sort of leadership you create for generation next? So many parents decide that instead of doing the work for themselves, sometimes, let's call it what it is so much easier to put that energy towards another generation of folks. Is that fair?
Hmm.
Totally fair. Totally fair.
Okay. Okay. So you guys see this a lot. Kim, I think you probably see it quite a bit as well. I don't have kids that are old enough to do sports, but can you tell me what you're seeing or what you're noticing?
Yeah, I can talk a little bit about that. So I think there's so many opportunities in sports right now, which is a great thing. But for parents, like maybe in our age bracket, a little bit older, who didn't have those opportunities or experiences, it can feel like a lot, right? So I think what we saw maybe like 10 years ago was what we would call helicopter parenting, right? Where every parent's trying to structure and do like what they can do for their kid, make sure, okay, you're doing, piano right now. And then right after piano, you're going to go to lacrosse practice and then you're going to do this and you're going to hang out with this person and then you're going to do this, right? That's helicopter parenting. What we're seeing now is there's even more on these kids' plates. So parents are feeling overwhelmed, stressed, not sure how to help them. So now we're seeing what we can call snowplow parenting, where there's so much adversity that's coming up that some parents, what they're trying to do is snowplow their child's way through life, getting rid of all the hard things that they would have to go through and just make it easy for them. And it's not badly intentioned. Like they're doing it to help their kid and relieve the distress of their kid because it's so hard to grow up today, so much harder than when we were growing up. It's insane what these kids have to do. And I think it's hard for us as parents to let our kids literally try and fail things every single day and learn how to grow resilient in that. So I think that's what I'm seeing most is helping parents to understand it's okay to let your kid fail. And actually, it's not just okay. You need to. You need to because you need them to grow that resilience. And they're not going to grow resilience without hitting that adversity.
Yeah. JJ, what did you fail at today?
A lot of things. A lot of things. So
Yeah.
I would say a challenge that I went through is that sports provided me with a great background of friends, great opportunities, spend a lot of time outside. And we have a 7-year-old and he's just not game for sports. And so really trying to distill, okay, what are the lessons that I would want him to learn from sports? Okay, resilience, self-assuredness, self-compassion, doing difficult things and trying to find activities that he loves that give him that same result. So we can be competitive in video games in the way that I used to be competitive with my dad in some type of sporting event. He gets into engineering and building stuff so I can get invested in how excited he is when he makes a Technics or a Legos creation. And for me, that gives me the joy. But for a lot of parents, they want to live vicariously through their kids, or they know how much sports brought into their lives and they want their kids to have the same experience. And they're not as flexible as they could be about, well, my child is literally a different person than I was. And I need to be able to get excited about what they're excited about and use some of the skills that we learn through sports to help them mature into different people. Because I always joke with my son, it's like, I don't care what you do. I just want to be entertained when I watch you do it. So if you're going to be in a play, you're going to be building, you're going to be singing, you're going to be playing sports. I just want to see you involved and loving it. And me and your mom will sit there in the audience enjoying watching you enjoy something. So you get to pick it and we get to support you.
I love that you both acknowledge that it's not about you. It's about who they are and how you can best support them, because these skills are not limited to sports. And we can see in our generation, and I hate to call everybody out there is a lack of emotional maturity that shows up a lot of times in what we're seeing across the board. And I think the abilities that athleticism brought us, I'm assuming the three of us, gave me a lot of mental maturity as a child, because I knew I wasn't going to win every time. I knew that there were things that were out of my control and they weren't fair or just. I knew what coming from behind and maybe only being 5'4" when the other basketball players were easily 5'8" to, plus. It's not fair, but noticing that my body, right, does have other skills and that I can use things. And, Jay and I, and we were talking about this, I chose running. And the reason I chose running is because I wasn't tall enough to be in some of those really heavily compact sports. And so for me, running I was completely self-reliant. But once you left that starting line, you were alone. So if you weren't strong mentally taking off that starting line, you had to figure out the next, 20 minutes of your life, right? And there was a lot of self-coaching and a lot of opportunities for personal growth. So I think what we learned as young athletes really takes off in adulthood. And maybe some of us as adults are sort of still catching up. When you guys think about adolescence in sports right now, what do you think is the number one concern?
I don't think there's a number one.
Oh.
I think each individual might have a number one concern for themselves. I think kids today have so much on their plate. Our culture, and this isn't bad or good, it just is what it is very achievement oriented. And that compounded with media, social media, and seeing people succeeding and achieving all the time in things online is a lot for a teenage brain to take, because they're really comparing themselves and where they level up and never feeling good enough. And so I think for me, that feeling of never being good enough is something, that many of us felt, like I certainly felt as a kid for different reasons, but I think it's just really affecting kids more severely today.
Yeah. Is that a skill that we can learn? Is that something that you feel like we could build?
Yeah. There's so many, like, I think there's two types of skill. Number one is you've got to think about what, if it is related to social media, what social media you are taking in. And I'm not someone who thinks social media is all bad. I think there's a lot of great things about it, but it's all about figuring out what your own relationship is with social media and what sites that you go on make you feel good. What things actually make you feel worse when you use them, and figuring out for yourself the right recipe, the right amount to use. The other thing that's important skill-wise when we talk about if we do start feeling not good enough by comparing ourselves, doing self-compassion exercises is so, so important. Kristen Neff is like the leader in self-compassion, and she has a ton online that you can take a look at. But and we talk a lot about different self-compassion exercises in our book too. But the basic gist of self-compassion is treating yourself like you would treat a friend, or in the team context, treating yourself like you would treat a teammate. You're never going to, you may yell at yourself and say, oh, like, you're terrible. Like, how could you have made that pass? But you would never say that to a teammate. So don't go say it to yourself.
Beautifully said. JJ, do you have a favorite skill?
Yeah, well, just to go back a few minutes, one of the things I was thinking, we talked about social media and things like that. Since we grew up riding bikes in our neighborhoods, I'm sure all three of us, our concern was like, were we the fastest kid in the neighborhood? And maybe the fastest kid in the town, then you might be legend. But now you have kids today where they can measure their stats against everybody in the country. And so the ability to really say, well, yeah, I might be average for my town, average for my neighborhood, but like I'm now measuring myself against everybody everywhere who has completely different levels of access to support, to training, to all these different things. You can get lost in the shuffle and lose perspective of you just being somebody out here playing basketball or who is a runner who's having fun with your sport. So that can be a challenge as well. And then um, I agree with Kim about fatigue and then also injury, because injury and fatigue are so closely linked. You have specialization, which can lead to more injuries or repetitive injuries. And you don't necessarily have global athletes or athletes who are multi sport, where it's like, yeah, we go ride our bike and then we go play basketball and then we go play kickball and, we're doing presidential fitness and things of that nature. So we develop all these muscles and all these movements universally, where you start having athletes now specialize at 10 years old, 12 years old, playing baseball year round and sports that do put a lot of wear and tear on your body where you might need a break, but due to the commodization of youth sports and how financially oppressive, and if you don't do this, your kid's going to fail, a lot of parents and a lot of kids feel pressured to play all the time. And that causes mental stress, but definitely physical stress.
Can I underpin with a fact that like I always find really profound? I grew up in Pennsylvania. One of the biggest sports there is Little League baseball, right? So every year there's this international summit of like adolescents. Do you know what percentage of them actually make it to Major League Baseball?
It's got to be 0.5%.
It is like exactly. It's 0.01, I believe. It's so low. It's less than 1%. So less than 1% of these athletes who we're seeing coming through, like you said, JJ, in these very specialized sports where they're not cross training, they're not doing multi sports. Their parents are fixated or focused on having them be the best possible at this one sport. JJ, you're absolutely right. When we were kids, we had seasons and it was over. There was an end. But if you're playing the same sport all year round and not taking that break, not taking that perspective, right? It's hard, right? You're constantly breaking yourself down physically, mentally, and in some cases, emotionally, right? So I'm glad you brought that up, that like multi-sport is actually something that's beneficial for adults and children alike.
Yes.
Can I make 2 points on that?
Please, yes.
So one point being, one of the reasons why I was able to transition to lacrosse at an older age at 15, 16 was because I played basketball before. I'd played street hockey. So the angles on the field, how you pass, how you move in a game that's flowing like that, like soccer, I understood it. So even though I hadn't picked up a stick before, even though I never played lacrosse, I understand how to move my body in space, how to play defense, how to be competitive. So that's one. Two, research tells us that if you have a 7-year-old who's an outlier, unless they're, huge, 6'4", big person,
right?
We can't tell if they're going to be a great athlete later on, in part because they're going to, regress back to the mean, become a typical child as puberty hits. But also they might become a world-class engineer. They might become a person who's not going to get invested in athletes. And that continues from when they're 7. We're bad at it when they're 12. We're bad at it when they're 16. And if you look at Major League Baseball draft, NFL draft, NBA draft, we get it wrong sometimes. And we could have 18, 20 years worth of data about how this athlete performs. We could pick them the number one pick and they could still bust. They could still not be the best athlete. So when you're a parent, you love your kid and you're probably looking at your kid through rosy glasses. And that might impede your ability to realize like, there's a lot of variables and a lot of things that are going to happen between now when this kid is 12 and when they're 18 or 20, when they could go to the draft. We don't know what variables are going to kick up that are either going to increase the likelihood or decrease the likelihood of it. But like you mentioned, and like what Kim mentioned, our goal should be always, 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 how can we help create and co-create the healthiest human we can so that as they age and mature, we're having a trajectory towards adulthood, but also in the here and now, how can we make their adolescent experience, their latency age experience, the best it possibly can be to keep them alive, but also so they can thrive and grow.
Yeah, and I agree. And I think what parents need to do to step outside of this for a minute. I think parents get so consumed with the outcome for their kid. Like, all right, I'm going to send my kid to this prep school or this hockey academy, and then they're going to go and they're going to play in the
We all
Olympics
do
and
it.
they're going to do this, right? It's should be about the process. What process is going to be the best fit for them to learn and fail and grow? Like I had this, so I've got 4 kids, they're all athletes. One of them's at a hockey academy. She is multi-sport too. She plays, lacrosse and baseball in the summer, but she does go most of the year, focusing mostly on hockey. I had one parent come up to me and say, okay, so what's your end game for this? So she's going here. And I go, end game? I go, no, my goal is to have her be in a place where she can grow as a human being and pursue her passions and do what she wants to do. Like, I don't care what she does after high school. Like, if she goes and plays college hockey, cool, good for her. If she doesn't, okay. But she's pursuing something she's passionate about, learning what it means to put extra effort into something so that you can get better at it, which that translates to maybe someday she wants to be an electrician. Maybe she wants to be a teacher. I don't know, whatever she wants to do, that will translate to that. So I think parents have to kind of stop for a minute and look at the broad, the
For
broad
stroke.
strokes.
Yeah.
Like what is happening here? And this is about their development as a human being, not as a little athlete.
Thank you for saying that. I think that's what I love the most about this book is that it is really grounding. Let's put it that way. It's grounding. If you are a athlete yourself, if you have a child who's an athlete, it is literally grounding the fact that you can relate to what's going on. And not only that, there are some actual actionable steps that you can take with your kids, whether it's forcing them to have fun, right? Bringing fun back into the sport, because JJ said it perfectly that it doesn't matter if you're singing in the chorus. It doesn't matter if you're a Lego expert or you happen to be the most gifted Michael Phelps swimmer of all times. If you lose the joy, you lose the purpose, right? You're no longer building skills in any dynamic, trajectory. So that's really huge. What do you want parents to take away from this book?
I think what you said is perfect. If I'm going to do something, I might as well find a way to do it with joy. I find a way to do it with self-compassion, find a way to do it with my peers, with my friends. So being able to think outside of, I need to do the thing, but think about ways to do the thing that are going to be emotionally beneficial, that are going to bring a benefit to society, a benefit to your community, a benefit to your teammates, and just stopping and to think about, okay, if I want to go on this road, this journey in my sports or my relationship with sports, how do I go about it in a way that's going to not bring risk factors mentally, but bring resiliency factors mentally? And how can I do it in a way that's really going to celebrate my body for what it is? Because, the things that I could do athletically at 20 are different than the things I can do athletically at 42, but I'm still an athlete. I still love to compete. I still love to try. I still love to challenge my body, but I've also had to make some course corrections and come to terms with some realities about what I can do and be able to still embody that. So I think being able to understand there's a lot of capacity, there's a lot of opportunity, but to be realistic and self-compassionate.
I think for parents reading this book, my hope for them is that it can arm you with some skills, some mental skills that you can use, not just in teaching things to your kids with respect to their sport, but like when you're at the dinner table at night, like you can use one of these skills. Like, I don't know, one example is like the stop, start, continue skill. Like it's a goal setting skill, something you can do at the table. Like, okay, let's all go around the table tonight and let's talk about what's something you're going to start doing. If we're talking about New Year's resolutions this year,
Sure.
what are you going to start doing this year? What things are you going to stop doing? And what things are you going to continue doing? And then you each go around and have a conversation. So it's about like having conversations on bettering yourselves. And by bettering yourself, I don't mean like being the best at a certain thing. I mean like being most in line with the values that you as a person hold true. And that's going to be different for everybody. Because that when you are feeling good, the way you feel best is when you're acting in accordance with your values. And this book gives you skills of how to do that. So I would hope that parents can read it and use it as like a way to be almost like a mini coach for your kids and things like maybe if you're around our age, we weren't taught those things growing up. That wasn't a part of the normal conversation. But now it's a very palatable book, very easy to read, and that it can be something that you can easily talk about with your kids.
I love that. I love that you guys make it so easy. And like, yeah, of course, parents want to jump in. They want to be part of the coach, want to be part of the experience in the community. And thank you, parents, for doing that, because I'm sure there were many sports you and I all did that we got dropped off and we got picked up, right? They weren't as engaged. So it's not that engagement is wrong. It's not that community around these sports is wrong. It's just that curiosity that you said, Kim. It's like, what are you gaining from this? What do you want to do differently? Who do you want to become at the end of this? What's those sort of things? And I love that JJ also mentioned that he's still an athlete. One of the biggest things is when you leave the competition field or you're not doing collegiate athlete, you have to ask yourself, I'm like, am I really still an athlete? Can I call myself an athlete? And the truth is, whether or not you ran a marathon this year or not, or you're doing that thing, what makes you an athlete is exactly what we were talking about today. It's the way you approach life with optimism and knowing that there's always a growth potential and that you can overcome with these amazing skills that you guys talk about so dynamically in this book. If you know somebody who could benefit from this episode or even link up where Dr. JJ and Dr. Kim are in their expertise, please share, please comment, and please continue this conversation with your family around the dinner table. Thanks for joining us.